Welcome to Invitation to Biblical Hebrew. Hello, my name is Russell Fuller. I am professor of Old Testament at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And with me is my co-author, Ch.0.
Yes. Hello. My name is Ch.0. I'm currently a PhD student in Old Testament at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Mr. Choi and I have worked for a long time on this project. Mr. Choi, how many hours have you put into this project so far?
Well, to be honest with you, many years of my life.
That's right. You wouldn't count this in hours, you would count this in years. What we want to do here in this introduction to the book is we want to discuss the basic philosophy that we used in writing this book. The first of our philosophy is really that we use a deductive approach as opposed to an inductive approach. In a deductive approach, what you do is you're really looking at the rules of the language. And so when you look at the first 6 chapters of the book, you will see that we look at the basic rules of phonology. And from those basic rules, we will be able to construct the forms of the language or the morphology of the language. As opposed to an inductive approach in which really the goal is to get the student as quickly as possible into the Hebrew text of the Old Testament. Now, there's certainly advantages to both methods. Some people prefer an inductive approach, but others prefer a deductive approach. And that's really, and of course others would have a sort of a combination, somewhat deductive, somewhat inductive. Our approach is basically a deductive approach. And again, the purpose of this is to eliminate as much memorization as we can. And so therefore, instead of memorizing paradigms, what we want to do is establish certain phonological rules so that the paradigms can actually be rationalized. And as we use reason, we can, again, help to reduce memorization. Now, again, we can never eliminate memorization in the learning of a language. But our goal is to reduce memorization, the burden of memorization, as much as we can. Another technique that we use in this grammar is the idea of drilling the rules and drilling the forms into students. And we do this by our method of first to explain the grammatical phenomenon. And then after that, we will demonstrate that phenomenon. And then after that, we'll have the student imitate the grammatical phenomenon through drills and through exercises. And during that time of imitation, of course, we will look to make corrections to their mistakes. And then once they understand it properly, then it's a matter of repetition, repetition, repetition in order to thoroughly ingrain the proper principles of Hebrew into the student. While our textbook emphasizes phonology and morphology, the book does have a basic syntax so that a student, after 1 year of using this textbook, will be able to translate simple Hebrew prose. Why we don't emphasize syntaxes, of course, is we just simply, it takes more than just 1 year to learn biblical Hebrew. And so our emphasis at this point is on the phonology and on the morphology. One cannot do syntax if they cannot parse a form, and therefore it's most important first to have a thorough understanding of the phonology and morphology. And after that, in a second-year course, then a layer of syntax can indeed be added effectively. Now, indeed, what we're hoping in the future, and as we're working on right now, is a volume, a companion volume to our first-year grammar that will emphasize syntax and put that layer of syntax onto the student. Now, our textbook is really designed for the student and not the scholar. And therefore, sometimes we will use language that's rather, let's say, colloquial rather than formal. And therefore, we'll use certain methods. And the goal of this is for the grammatical phenomenon to be easily remembered in the mind of the student. And therefore, sometimes we'll use language that is not technical Hebrew grammarian language. But again, our purpose is to teach to students and not to speak to scholars. Now, we do not completely eliminate the scholarly language because we recognize that those who go from this first-year grammar into intermediate grammars, they need to know some of that language, and therefore we do have some technical language within the book so that, again, they can go to an intermediate, and in some cases, an advanced grammar. But really, our ultimate goal is for students to, when they leave seminary or when they leave a Bible college, that they would be able to effectively use biblical Hebrew in ministry. As a professor of Hebrew, I know very well that many students take Hebrew in seminary and in college, but yet once they get to the ministry and the pressures, the great time pressures of ministry, Hebrew is often forgotten and not used. But our goal here is that we thoroughly train students in the phonology, the morphology, and then by the second and third year of their courses, put on a very firm layer of syntax to show them how this language is very practical for the Christian ministry. And if our students and those who use this grammar will actually use this in Christian ministry, then we'll feel that we've been successful in our attempt in an invitation to biblical Hebrew. When we come to the outlay of our grammar, the first 6 chapters emphasize the phonology. They're going to be our basic rules. Now, indeed, there will be some more rules of phonology as they move on in the grammar, but the basic rules that we're going to use throughout the grammar are in chapters 1 through 6, and they're absolutely vital to everything beyond chapter 6. When we go to chapter 6 and chapter 9, there what we will do is we'll look at the attaching of the article and also inseparable prepositions. Chapters 10 through 16 deal with the nouns and adjectives and other prepositions. Starting in chapter 17 and going through chapter 25, those chapters are dedicated to the strong verb. That basically makes up the first semester of our course. The second semester of the course starts in chapter 26, and here we have a chapter dedicated to syntax that allows the students to review the phonology and morphology of first semester. Then in chapters 27 and 28, we have chapters dedicated to attaching pronominal suffixes to verbs. And then finally, in chapters 29 through chapters 38, we tackled the weak verb, the most difficult aspect of Hebrew morphology. And so those last chapters deal with the weak verb. Of course, there is a companion volume that goes along with our textbook, and that's a book that's dedicated to drills. And so you'll find many extra drills, and also the keys to those drills, and also the keys to the homework exercises found in the grammar. We hope that if a person would like to learn Hebrew on their own, they would be able to use this material in such a way that they'd be able to learn it. And therefore we have drills and keys to drills that go throughout the textbook and also with the drills themselves. And so hopefully through these drills and through the lectures of these DVDs, students who are highly motivated and wish to teach themselves, they can do it. And obviously they'll be able to go back over and over and look at the material and review the material until it is thoroughly understood. Well, we hope you enjoy Invitation to Biblical Hebrew, and I hope that this will help you to master the Hebrew language, that you might indeed teach the Word of God effectively in your ministry.